So I was talking to Chris this morning, and my husband, about 6 years ago, founded a men's retreat called Soul Degree. I think a lot of you know the story about the restaurant businesses tanking and our life savings going down the drain with it. After the restaurant business tanked, you took a couple years to really figure out what you were going to do next with your life and to heal a lot of went down for you personally in the wake of that experience of launching a business, pouring your heart and soul into it, and then it not working. And one of the things that you've done is you've started a men's retreat called Soul Degree, where you take men out into the woods, and it's a 5-day experience that includes yoga and journaling and guided meditation and all kinds of coaching. And so you've got one of your men's retreats coming up, and you never, ever talk about what happens at them. You come back and you're completely transformed. And I really respect the fact that you don't share anything because it's all confidential. But I asked you this morning if you would just tell me, like, what are the themes that come up when you go and do a retreat with 5 men or you're coaching your male clients? And you said there are very distinct themes that all the men that you work with are struggling with. And when you told them to me, I was shocked. And I said, everybody needs to hear this. So that's what I want to talk about. Okay.
Yes. Well, I think one of the things that we were talking about this morning is just that guys don't put themselves first. Everyone else comes first. And that manifests or shows up often, at least with many of the men that I've engaged with, is them losing complete sight of what they need or want for themselves, just because the muscle of looking out for themselves is completely lost, and it's all about everyone else.
When you first shared that in the kitchen this morning, I looked at you with like my eyes crossed, because I had never in a million years thought that a dude feels like everybody else comes first, because every woman that I know says that everybody in her life comes first. And so it never even occurred to me that the guys walking around feel as though everybody else in the family or with their roommates or with their significant other, that they come before them.
I think they're putting what they perceive to be the needs of the people around them first, and which means they're pouring themselves into work or, other obligations, if you will, and losing track of what genuinely I have guys that have come on retreat and they haven't really even conceived of a hobby, much less, what's important to them.
You also explained that you have this exercise that you do with your coaching clients and that you guys do on retreat that really illustrates what you're talking about. Can you explain that?
Well, it's just that. It's a conversation about where there has been neglect in focusing on yourself and the things that you find meaning and value in, which, again, like I said, I think it gets lost in the shuffle. So I've asked guys to take out a piece of paper and write down specifically what they want and need, and many just draw a blank, can't fill the page.
Nothing?
No, they actually have to step away from the exercise and even give it a day or two before they really feel like, haven't really thought about that before.
That's a layer deeper than I think what most women struggle with. Because I think at least the women that I talk to and my friends and listeners to this show that write in, you have a sense of what you need to do to put yourself first. You have a sense of what you want in terms of your own needs, and there's a longing for it. But to have an experience of life where you have so put everybody else before you that you don't even know or feel like your needs matter enough that you can't even put them on a piece of paper? Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is. It is a bit tough to swallow. And, with all due respect, I think that if you look at something as basic as exercise, for example, and you see a guy spending a good bit of time exercising, that's not to say that he doesn't perceive that as being a need or a want of his, but there oftentimes is still a layer of obligation. Like, I got to look good for my wife, or I got to whatever, that there's a gotta, have to. And so I'm not sure that can always fall in the appropriate category of genuinely, what do I need to feel good about myself and my life?
What's the second one?
I think people are, I'm not sure if I'd say explicitly they're lonely, but many are friendless or have lost the their way in developing friendships. Again, the muscle has weakened as they have poured themselves into things like work and career and family, and God forbid they're running into health problems. I mean, all of these things sort of take precedent to cultivating real deep friendships. And so many guys, I think in general in life, I think it's particularly when you hit your 40s, 50s, I think you really have to work extra hard at cultivating and building friendship. And I'm not talking about maybe the guys that maybe there are people in your life that have been around since middle school or high school or college. But, outside of that, especially if you're somebody that's moving or changing geographies or even jobs for that matter, it can be really disruptive and be a major roadblock, and then subsequently just an excuse. And then all of a sudden the guy wakes up and is like, yeah, I don't really have a whole lot of friends around me.
Wow. What about the third thing that men struggle with, but they don't really talk about? Or,
I think
surprising.
I think it's just a cultural thing, of course, that men naturally still follow that societal norm of needing to be the provider and the protector, or one and the same. And that,
You mean like make money?
it's all about making money.
How so?
Well, I think the whether they are generating the pressure upon themselves or it's coming from external forces, and I think it's probably a little bit of a mix of both, but the sense of responsibility that the more money I make, the more security and freedom and happiness I can create amongst the people around me. And so therefore, let me go back to making money. Or how do I make the money?
And is there also this pressure among guys that you're measured up based on how much money you make? Like you know what I'm saying? Like
I don't know
there is
how
this
much
unspoken
of
thing.
guys are being, influenced by looking around or over their shoulder, or whether it's all self-created. That it's your own expectation level. And that was the other thing that we talked about this morning, was just that another area is I'm not good enough. I'm not living up. I'm not reaching the goal, whatever that goal is.
Well, and I can see that if you feel this sense of obligation that everybody else comes first, so much so that you're not even in touch with your own needs, and then you also have lost touch with your friends, and now you're like, my God, where did my friends go? And then you start to feel this obligation to just make money. All those things become measuring sticks where you're like, I'm just not measuring up in any of these areas. And what's interesting is that the fifth one that you said is how they ultimately end up with you as a coach, or attending a retreat, or being part of your online community. coaching programs that you do. And I think this is an important one for everybody to hear. This is a struggle and an interest that a lot of guys aren't talking about. And what is it?
That men are seeking a deeper, more meaningful life, whatever that might mean for them. And even announcing that publicly, I think is a little tricky at times. Not because guys are not willing to admit that once they arrive at it, but I think it takes some time to arrive at that. Like, oh yeah, there's something deeper that I want to go after that I haven't yet in my life. And like I said, that means something different to every guy out there.
Well, and what's also interesting is that I think when you realize you want something deeper, it probably sets up a major conflict, because that would mean everybody else might not come first. And it also means your focus shifts from just merely providing and climbing the ladder and making money to something intrinsic and deeper that might not involve money at all.
Well, you're right. It definitely is a pendulum swing to focusing on self, which is, like we talked about, a weak muscle. But it can also imply that something is broken and needs fixing, which I think is part of what creates inertia in this conversation with guys, because they need to figure out that it's not about it's broken or, something has to change. It's about my heart talking. My soul is talking here.
What's normally talking for a
guy? How to solve the problem, how to make the buck, how to lose the pound, like how to get the girl, how to, what do my kids need? Is the car need fixing? Like, the list is long.
Today, you and I are going to have a conversation about the most important relationship that you have in life. And that's the relationship you have with yourself.
The high five was easy. The looking at myself in the mirror, that was not easy.